That's okay, I guess. Okay, so I wonder what we're going to talk about today. Do you ladies have any ideas? Any thoughts about where we're going this morning? It's always kind of open, just see where we land, I guess. But considering the things we were talking about the last few weeks, there might be some thoughts on your mind, something that you're thinking you want to talk about, something you want to come back and share a little bit more about. And we're always open for doing that. We love to kind of recap and see if there's something you've been working on, something you've been trying, your experiences with that, anything at all like that. So in our past weeks, we've talked about a lot about home, about mother and her role, about mother culture, what that means, about curating a home and curating a life. Those have all been such good discussions. I've really enjoyed them. I've actually gone back a little bit and watched some of the recordings just to remind myself about some of the things we talked about. It's just been really, really good. And it sent me to a bunch of different books, just kind of looking things up, trying to learn a little bit more. So I'm gonna have all my notes from our meetings. When you ladies say things, I'll take notes and kind of write down what you've said. I love to keep those things to refer back because we've had some really good takeaways from some of our discussions as well. So anyway, any thoughts from anybody this morning? I'm just looking over my notes. I doubt you're able to take notes much, most of you, because you have little people around. That makes that a little bit hard. It's just been so good. There's just so many beautiful things I've written down that you ladies have said. Yeah, it's just lovely. So if there's nothing else, that's okay. We'll just move forward and we'll see what we're doing. I did bring a couple things to share. I was going to share this one book I've loved, but I've loaned it out and I never write down who I've loaned it out to. So I don't always get them back, but it's a book on child training and it's just so good. It has been my favorite so far and I've read a bunch. I'm kind of, if you know me, you know that if there's an area that I'm currently working on in my life, then my library is going to be full of books on that topic. That's just kind of how I roll. So when I was trying to learn how to declutter, just not have all the stuff, which I haven't mastered yet, but I had about every book on the subject. And I learned good tips. So the same thing with parenting, and this book just won out. It was my very, very favorite book. I probably should put it in the chat, but it's called, I'll do it. It's called Hints on Child Training. I loved the title because it wasn't like, here, I'm going to tell you how to do it. Just that phrase, just being able to put hints. I'm sharing with you some hints on child training. I like that. And then I've got to make sure I spell his name right. Okay, that's it. Hints on Child Training by H. Clay. Oh no, flip at that. Sorry. H. Clay Trumbull. I got the spelling right, but not the order of his names. Anyway, this book was written mid-1800s, which also just fascinated me. And it was written by a man, which was also really interesting. This book on child training, but it was beautiful. And in the first part of it, he reminds us multiple times that if a child is misbehaving, you look to the parent, which is kind of an ouch. But at the same time, it makes sense. And it also helps you to be much more patient and understanding with children that come into your world, into your life that you're interacting with, because perhaps before where you might have been frustrated with them, maybe you can look at the situation and say, well, they just perhaps weren't taught in that area, and I can be patient and kind with them. It's helped me a lot. But the parenting part of it is lovely. It talks a lot about will, W-I-L-L, will training rather than will breaking. And if you think about that time period that he was writing in, mid 1800s, that's pretty huge, that difference, because there was a lot of will breaking that happened back in that day. And I love the idea of just gently training your child. Anyway, so I thought I'd share that with you, since many of you are in that, in the throes of that. I love it. There's so many things about it. Plus, that's the book that I'll share the Christmas chapter from that book often. And it's near the end of the book, and it is all about how to make Christmas magical for a child. So it's very, very respectful and loving toward the child, and their development and their happiness. And I love that too. And he has all kinds of great ideas about how to make a child happy, how to do fun and magical things for a child when they're children and when they need that. Okay, but the reason I brought him up was, well, first off, somebody had asked about it about a week ago, so I brought it up and gave them the information. And then I just ran across a quote from him, and I love it. So I'll come to that in just a moment. But again, I'm going to share from this book, which has been my reading for the month of September, because the September, as you know, the September Mothers University topic is the influence of mother, or a mother's influence. So this book called Mother Culture has been lovely. And I don't usually pick up a book and read it from beginning to end anymore. I kind of just pull it up and I read from it. I just thumb around and find something that looks wonderful and I read it. So unless you raise your hand or say, or I can see from your face that you have something you really want to see, I'm going to read a little bit from this. But please interrupt anytime you want to share things you're thinking or things you want to comment about it. But this chapter is chapter 18, and it's entitled For the Love of It, which intrigued me, so I went to it. The first quote on the page is, "The mother's heart is the child's schoolroom," by H.W. Beecher. And I loved just that. And I like the picture too. I like that the book has pictures. Who doesn't like books with pictures, right? And it's just sweet. Reminded me of Cadence with all the garden kind of things back there, just creating this lovely, lovely space. Okay, so then it says, my young son had a question. We were discussing professions. He asked, "Ma, what's the lowest paying job?" I thought about it. I said, "Making French fries at a fast food restaurant, I suppose." But then another vocation popped to mind. "No, wait a minute. I know a lower paying job than that." We all know that job, right? He said, "What is it?" She said, "You're looking at it." A mother, homemaker, home teacher must fit herself with dedication, faithfulness, knowledge, and a variety of skills. Her list of duties and responsibilities is long. Motherhood doesn't earn her any prizes, badges, or letters after her name, and she is paid no salary. This part was super interesting, and I've heard this from Marlene too. She is an amateur. She carries out her service as unto God as well as she can. But I'd like to make one thing clear. An amateur is not really the opposite of a professional. The word is a wonderful one. The word amateur comes from the Latin word amare, which means to love. A mother, homemaker, and home teacher does what she does for the love of it. She loves and is loved in return. This is her special service, her blessed vocation. Without this love, the world would suffer. Isn't that beautiful? I love that. So the word amateur comes from the Latin word meaning to love. So then on the flip page, it says, "In all ages and everywhere, the true children of a true mother rise up and call her blessed, for they realize sooner or later that God gives no richer blessing to man than is found in a mother's love." And that's the one that's by Mr. Trumbull. So I loved that. Any thoughts on that so far? Anybody? We may have a quiet group today, and that's okay too. I'm here for you so that you have a place to come to chat or to listen. And I have no wise words, but I'm happy to facilitate the sharing of wise words. So, okay, I will continue then if you're not feeling the strong desire to share something yet. A mother's love is her calling. Do you sometimes feel the need to be encouraged by another who has gone before you? You know, that happens so often. Apart from Marmee of Little Women and the mother full of courage in Hilda van Stockham's touching story, The Winged Watchman, which I don't know if I know that. Do any of you know The Winged Watchman? Anyone know that story or that? I don't even know. Is it a story? Oh, it is a story. It doesn't say it's a book. So a story called The Winged Watchman. You might just kind of note that. We'll see if we can figure out what that is. Sorry, I'm taking notes on my own comments here. That's kind of silly. But otherwise, I won't remember that I said that. Okay, so apart from Marmee, we all know Marmee from Little Women, and then this other mother. Mothers seem to be a little scarce in fiction. If mothers are mentioned at all, they are unassuming and in the background. Because of their scarcity, I started looking for them. Doesn't that sound like Marlene? This is Karen Andreola. She's the one who's written about books about Charlotte Mason, the Charlotte Mason method, how to do that in your home. When a likable mother pops up, she has my full attention, no matter how quiet a person she is. For your encouragement, here are a few prominent characters, all mothers with large hearts. And I love that. I love that she's bringing these to our attention. So I thought, well, I'll share. Since we're talking about a mother's influence, how appropriate on this at the end of the month, as we're getting close to the end of the month anyway, sharing these different mothers. So this is Mark Twain. My mother had a slender, small body, but a large heart. A heart so large that everybody's grief and everybody's joy found welcome in it and hospitable accommodation. I thought that was so beautiful. Can you imagine if that's how your children saw you and what you do? No wonder he had such a beautiful way of writing the things that he shared if he had this example at home. Anyway, and then A Lantern in Her Hand is a book that's shared, and that's one of the ones that's on your book list to read for September, if you want to do that. It's called A Lantern in Her Hand by Beth Streeter Aldrich. And it says, a friend of mine read this story first as a young lady, next when she was married with a succession of babies, and then years later when her children were flying out of the nest. With each read, she was encouraged in a different way. I can understand why. The story traces the life of Abby, a pioneer woman of Nebraska, from a young girl of the 1850s to a grandmother in the 20th century. Along her seasons of life, we pick up morsels of wisdom. Bess wrote this story in the 1920s out of admiration for her own mother. Much research on the details of covered wagon days went into the book. Many were first-hand sources that came to Mrs. Aldrich in the form of handwritten letters. During a radio interview, she invited listeners to share their reminiscences. To her surprise, letters came pouring in. Amidst the mindset of me first, Abby's life, that's the mother in the book, Abby's life shines in contrast. We see Abby take courage in adversity, patiently not grow weary in the good work of an amateur. I thought that was a lovely little summary that makes me want to read the book more. This one was sweet. It's called Papa's Wife. Anyone ever heard of this book? Papa's Wife by Thera Fair Bjorn. And it's a biographical novel, line by line, uplifting, brimming over with a mother's love. In Papa's Wife, Mrs. Bjorn writes about her mother. She has a clear memory of living in Swedish Lapland with her 4 sisters and 4 brothers. As a young lady, Mrs. Bjorn's mama secretly desires to be married to her bachelor pastor, who is old enough to be comfortably set in his ways. He is the best and kindest man she knows. When they marry, she serves Papa, she calls him Papa, with joy. With each new baby comes more work, but best of all, more joy. I laughed out loud at the humorous idiosyncrasies of the children and their real relationship to one another. With 9 children, Mama has her arms full. Her large heart is accompanied with mother wit, faith in God, and a deep-rooted sense of duty, which I find inspiring. The family comes to America in 1924 when Papa answers a call to pastor a church in Massachusetts. Although the land of opportunity is initially Mama's dream and farsightedness, husband and wife make the decision together. Had I read Papa's Wife in my young motherhood, I would have savored the encouragement I found there, and which I yearned for then. So I thought just that line made me think, oh, for young mothers, that might be something you want to make time for. So that's Papa's Wife by Thyra Fair Bjorn. Okay, anything? Jen, nice to have you back. Welcome. Okay, we're just doing a little book review, kind of I found a chapter in this book, Mother Culture, talking about Karen, the author of this book, looking for stories, looking for mother in stories. And then when she found her, she made note of it. So I'm just sharing those things. Catherine Wentworth, that's another book by D.E. Stevenson. It's 1964. Oh gosh, they say that like that's a long time ago. That's the year I was born. You can't talk about that like that was a long time ago. Oh man. All right, Catherine Kit is a young widow. She lives in Edinburgh, Scotland. That's kind of cool. My daughter's going there in 2 weeks. In a city apartment without a car. Seeing inside this mother's heart, I made a book friend. I understand Kit. She is doing her best to bring up 3 children without their father. Kit's eldest son, Simon, is a stepson who has already come of age. The close relationship Simon shares with Kit and his 2 young siblings, Den and Daisy, is encouraging. Conflicts arise. Simon is faced with some difficult decisions involving his future. Now that he is a young man, what kind of life will Simon choose for himself? The ending is one that celebrates paths of goodness and love. Well, that sounds lovely. That sounds so good. And for a single mom, what a lovely thing to have an inspiring, beautiful book to give you some courage and some examples. I love that. And then Olivia of the Waltons. Did anybody, I mean, you guys would have had to watch it in its like, late stage reruns. I watched it when it was on, when it was playing. I watched it in the evenings on prime time. Anyway, this one says, I had a crush on John Boy Walton. That was in my girlhood before I did not, but he honors his parents and his grandparents, shows patience and understanding toward his 6 younger siblings, but it's his mother who gets my attention now. Olivia and John Walton bring up 7 children during the Depression. In those hard times, the work is sun up to sundown. The Waltons make do and do without, but no one in the family ever has to do without love. And it is beautiful. It really is. I mean, maybe, kind of hokey, whatever, but it's lovely. The depth of love and dedication Olivia has for her husband and children deserve notice. Home is her ministry. With love spiraling outward, she feels sorry for every struggling neighbor and every straggler that wanders onto Walton's Mountain. Not only are these neighbors and wanderers touched by her kindness and hospitality, they also learn something. They learn how to be people with greater determination, less self-pity, and brighter hope. It's a lovely show if you wanted to have something to watch with your family, and so is this one. This one, she's talking about Carolyn Ingalls, also 1970s TV series, Little House on the Prairie. She's another steadfast, large-hearted mother who has my admiration. She is so unlike the coarse and loud women portrayed today. Her husband, Charles, who recognizes her worth to be far above rubies, would do anything for her. He and Carolyn are devoted to one another, to their children, and to their pioneer community of Walnut Grove. Little House has to be one of the best programs produced in America, she says. How very different it is from the depravity of today's programming. Gosh, and this was, I don't know how old this book is, not super old, but still before now. Hold on, I'm trying to find it. Where's the date? Well, I don't know when the first printing was, maybe 2001, so 20 something years ago. It seems to me a life of unwavering love, as interpreted by the Bible. Another one called My Stories. Oh, this is lovely. This is a book. I don't know this one. Does anyone know this book called My Stories from Charles Lamb? Do you know Charles Lamb? Charles and Mary Lamb. How do you know them, Cadence? Just so that we have another voice on here, not just mine.
Shakespeare. They wrote a Shakespeare book for kids.
Yeah, exactly. He and his sister Mary wrote a lovely little book called Tales from Shakespeare. And it's just a book for children or for adults who haven't learned. It's my speed. I like it. Anyway, in the book My Stories, it says I've written 2 stories where their main character is a patient, large-hearted Christian mother. A Pocket Full of Pine Cones and its sequel, Lessons at Blackberry Inn. Carol, as a new home teacher, learns as she gives. She is on her feet a lot, caring for her family and those that God brings her way. I invite you to make Carol one of your book friends. You might find you have much in common with her purposes and her aspirations. So I loved that too. So A Pocket Full of Pine Cones and Lessons at Blackberry Inn. What I'll probably do is put all of these books or stories in the email, and I'll just send out an email that has those in it. So if you're not on the email list, just tell me, just message me. Okay, and then the film called The Search, 1948 film called The Search. She said it left a deep impression on me. The scenes, the scenes were shot in 1947 among post-war ruins. World War II is over, but not all the children understand this. One scrawny little boy, an Auschwitz survivor, is spooked, and he runs away from his rescuers, not knowing whom to trust. An American soldier gives this confused homeless boy his sandwich and manages to take him to his outpost. While the soldier and the boy search for his mother is searching for him. Eventually, she's offered a job working at the same UNRRA camp where her son had been processed before he ran away. If she can't be a mother to her lost son, she will tenderly mother the orphan children at the camp. The final scene filled my eyes with happy tears. So, I just love this. I love that she had this desire to find good, warm, loving mothers in literature, and that she actually found some. And again, like I said, it just reminds me so much of Marlene, looking for mother and family and father in books and providing those for us. I wonder if we realize how great a blessing that really is in our lives to have this library that is just right in front of us, so easy to access. I don't know. And Mercedes, you asked what email list. I have an email list that I just have collected over time so that when I want to send something to the ladies that come here or that watch the video afterwards, I can do that. So if you want to be included on that list, you can message me. You can message me on the Mighty Network platform and just send a chat and send me your email address and I'll add you to that. Anyway, but I was very, very, very particular. I'm sure you can't, that comes as a shock to you, about my children and what they read, what they watched, because I wanted mother and father to be portrayed in a good light. And you tell me which cartoons or which children's shows you feel like portray parents in a positive light. What would your list be? I'm sure it's a short list, but I'd be curious to know what your list would be. There are some that were just off the list the first time I watched them. One, just because the child is so annoying, but I can't handle Caillou. That's just me personally. Can't do it. But as far as families go, yeah, okay. Cadence, can you talk about that just a little bit? Because your first one is top of my list.
Yes, and I got it from you.
Oh, you did? Oh,
so yeah, you told me about it. Little Bear, that's one of our favorites. Very positive relationships with not only mom and dad, but grandma and grandpa.
Yes.
And friends.
Yes.
And working things out in a positive way. The next one is Beatrix Potter. There's some little stories. Anyway, and
Yes.
then Brambley Hedge.
So tell me about Brambley Hedge. That's one I don't know.
Okay, so York, go get the Brambley Hedge book. Brambley Hedge is about these mice that live underneath some blackberry brambles, and they have a stump that's their storage stump. And there's like 6 stories, and it comes in book format, but they also have a little show about each story. So there's fall, spring, summer, and winter, and they do different things. Like one year they build, there's a big snowstorm, and so they have to hollow out a big dance hall so that they can have a party in it. And they're always gathering in the autumn, they're gathering stuff to put in the store stump, and the pictures are adorable. It's upstairs, brown sticker. And the where was I? Anyway,
They were storing up in the,
they're
I want
storing
to hear.
in the pictures they have,
Oh yeah.
it like every shelf has something on it, and it's very British countryside type of thing. It's a lot of fun. We love it. No, that's not it. It's okay. Get it another time.
Oh, cute. Thank you for trying, buddy. We appreciate you. That sounds wonderful. And Mercedes also chimed in. The Brambley Hedge books are so cute. Mercedes, you have those for your family?
Yeah, I bought like the treasury, so it's all in one book, and they're just beautiful. The illustrations, you have some apple, huh? The illustrations are, not right now, thank you. The illustrations are beautiful, and these little mice just like make me feel industrious. They make me want to be industrious, let's put it that way. And but they're just really beautiful, right? And they're cute little stories, and they and yeah, the illustrations are really detailed. There's just like all these little things going on, and so much for a child to look at, while you're reading the words on the page. Like the in the summer one, there's a wedding, like a little mouse girl and a mouse boy get married, and just like the dress that the little mouse is wearing, like they're just beautiful. They're just so much fun to read, and so I've super fallen in love with them. I originally got them at the library, and then I was like, oh, I'm just gonna buy this because they're super, super cute. And it's like she said, Cadence, I think, they go throughout like the year. So there's a story for spring, summer, fall, winter, and then a few other additional stories. So they're fun to kind of just have and like revisit as the year goes on.
I love that. I think that's so sweet. And I love that how both of you were excited about the book, about oh, there we go, the complete Brambley Hedge. Oh, that's sweet. That's so sweet. And Cadence, you have berries growing like that wild around you, don't you? I love that. I would like to live somewhere where berries were considered weeds. That sounds pretty amazing to me. I love it. I love it. Do you ever find yourselves after, if you're reading to your children, then they fall asleep, do you sometimes have to finish the story because you just don't want to end in the middle of the picture book? I love picture books. I just love them.
When I'm reading to my kids, I kind of accidentally skip ahead in my mind and I stop reading aloud. And then they get mad at me, Mom, keep reading.
Right. Because you're reading for you. I mean, they're there, which, enjoy, but you are reading for you. I love it. Okay, other things, other little shows or books that you just think are so wonderful and appropriate when it comes to family relationships. Are there any others you guys are thinking of that you would put on the list? Yeah, Melissa McCann.
I always liked the Brady Bunch. I always just wanted to be part of their family.
Absolutely. What did you like about it? We just watched that 2 nights ago.
I don't know. I just like seeing like the brothers and the sisters, just the way everyone interacts, and they show the way they show them, the mom and the dad, like, they always show them like getting along like nicely and everything. So
that is so good for the parents getting along, caring about the children, working through problems, but in a very respectful and kind way.
Yeah.
Yep. all that love in the family for each other, and the teaching and training that happened, the wise words of Mr. Brady. I love it. So we have the series until Oliver came to the family. We just forget that the Bradys ever decided to do that because that was a bad decision. So we don't have those episodes. But Cousin Oliver, child actors, I have an issue there. So I love the Dick Van Dyke Show, but boy, that Richie just about puts me over the edge. So I just don't do Richie. But that's why I like the Andy Griffith Show, because my goodness, Opie is just darling. Okay, sorry, totally got off on a tangent there. But yeah, so 2 nights ago we were watching the Brady Bunch, just Stephen and Sarah and me. That's what we'll watch when I'm downstairs. If I'm not there, they have a couple other choices. But if I'm downstairs, it's a Brady Bunch or Dick Van Dyke or Andy Griffith Show or something like that. Oh man, do you find that you've become more sensitive to shows and things now that you have warmed your heart sufficiently? Yeah, I definitely have found that. Okay, hold on, we're gonna go back. All right, Cadence, share.
Okay, so I put Meet Me in St. Louis, and I just love that movie. But the main thing that I remember is when the dad announces that they're going to move to New York and everyone's upset with him, and so then he gets in a huff. Well, and he's not had a good day anyway. And he's hot and sweaty, and it's just a gross summer day. and and the mother, she gets upset too, because she's like, we have this wonderful life here, why are you taking us away from that? But then there's this magical moment where she goes over to the piano and she starts playing, and it immediately softens his mood, and she starts playing a song that they loved, and he starts singing it, and then slowly everyone starts coming back down the stairs, and pretty soon they're all kind of reconciled again. But it's just because mom took that moment and used music, and I just loved it so much. And then the other ones that I had are, of course, Little Women, and then I had Cheaper by the Dozen. Those are my.
They're so good. Those are so fun, and they're great depictions of family. But I love that you brought up that the mother using music. I think we forget these ideas of mother having these magical powers, and we forget to wield those magical powers. I wonder if we could choose to kind of work on that a little bit, work on using that gift we have of being soft and lovely and creative and whatever, to influence our family in positive ways. I love that. Okay, so Little Women is beautiful, and so much about family and those relationships, and so much comfort comes in a very difficult time because of mother. Cheaper by the Dozen is just so entertaining. Have you ever read the book? Because the movie is so much fun, but the book I highly recommend the book. Book is really great. And speaking of having a character that motivates you to be industrious, that one is definitely. The mom, she and the dad both were instrumental in affecting productivity and efficiency in different things. She worked part-time because she had all these children. It was always children first, family first, but she made, why can't I think of words, but she made definite contributions to the world of efficiency. She created things like the efficient kitchen with its triangle, where you're supposed to have the sink and the refrigerator and the stovetop in a triangle, easy to get to. She would work with people in businesses to reduce the number of steps that it took to do a certain job, so she set up her home like that, very efficient. And the dad was all about that too. The book is far more interesting than the movie. I just love it. Okay, then Sound of Music. Oh yes, Melissa, that was such a beautiful story, and such a beautiful story of a family that was a broken family, missing their mother, having a single parent, and then that blending of a family, and that's beautiful and encouraging. I love that. A Wrinkle in Time. Some people really don't like A Wrinkle in Time, and I love it. I think it's so much fun. I couldn't have been introduced to it as a little child. It would have been a little bit scary to me, but I think it's really fun and really good. I love that. Okay, Melissa, Mercedes, would you, either of you, want to share about the things that you talked about? Sometimes I know you say things off, just in the chat because you aren't in a place where you can talk. But Melissa, you can let me know, just come off camera if you want to share. And then Mercedes, I know you're commenting about my question. Have you become more sensitive with your heart, with the nurturing of your heart? Oh, good. Okay, we'll go to Melissa and then we'll go to Mercedes. Okay. Hi, Melissa.
Hi. I was gonna add Chitty Chitty Bang Bang too, and I wrote Swiss Family Robinson in that chat.
Oh, yeah.
But we listened to Swiss Family Robinson. I actually don't know if we finished it. Honestly, now that I'm thinking about it.
How many
on a
times does
road
that
trip.
happen? Yeah, I know.
We finished everything that's in the movie, pretty much, but it keeps going. I don't know if we finished that. But just the dynamic between the family and the kids and the respect for each person in the family is really apparent in the book. And so we enjoyed that. Also the learning, the parents were like, you're the botanist. What do you have in your head on this and this and this? And really trusting the kids in their areas of expertise and their interests, which was beautiful.
I love that.
Yeah, some people don't like A Wrinkle in Time, which is fine. I read A Wrinkle in Time in 3rd grade, and it is my favorite book.
I think that's where I was too. And yeah, you got positive votes from Ida too. And I think it just depends on how much literature you were exposed to already. And I don't think it's that weird if you're familiar with a lot of stories. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but
yeah. But most of the series I enjoy. I think there's one book I won't have my kids read until they're older, but I'd have to go back and look. But the parents, the Murrays, that family, are all very respectful towards each other, despite issues going on or concerns for each person. And they're very fine with, you're super academic, let's go with it. You're into sports, let's go with it. You can handle what comes your way. And even when things go wrong, one parent can handle the household without any concern from anyone else. And they just very, very much respect each other and get along.
And that's so uncommon now. So I love that. I love that that's what you got from that.
So yeah, just a couple thoughts.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And then Melissa McCann added Franklin and Friends. So Franklin was one of the few other little shows that I would let my kids watch because the mother and father were respectful of each other. And, we had to talk about hiding your food under the table because you don't do that. You don't hide things from mom and dad. But but aside from that, I liked how kind he was and how his friends interacted and how he was with his parents. So, and how the parents were with each other. It's not funny, but that, Rugrats, we never, ever did. Even just because the name, yeah, I couldn't get past. I don't even call my children kids. Like if I do very casually, I kind of catch myself. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But for me, my head, they're my children. It's my child. I don't know. I just have these funny things in my mind about things. Okay. Oh yeah, Ida adds Where the Red Fern Grows. Oh, it's so beautiful. That is such a beautiful story and lovely family. Okay, and Ida, do you want to share about any of your things that you mentioned?
Sure. So for a while we were reading books together, like with my kids, and they just get in bed and I'd read a story to them. And I was trying to read books that, like, there was a movie so they could read the book and hear the book and then compare it to the movie. And that was one of the ones we did, was Where the Red Fern Grows. And such a good book. And the story, the movie does a pretty darn good job of staying true to the book, I think. But there was others, like Summer of the Monkeys is another good, really good book. The movie, it was all right. It was really changed a lot, but it's pretty good. There was another one I was just thinking of. Oh, the Chronicles of Narnia. Like those movies, they did a really good job on those movies, and they're really just good.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Bye,
Kate's had to
Cadence.
go. Bye. Yes,
I was like, she's waving.
I know. Trying to get
Yeah,
her attention. Oh no, she's saying bye.
and I watched this movie last night that's called Love Kennedy, and it's a true story. I watched it the other night, Tuesday night. Anyways, I'd never seen it before, but it's religious. Like it's like about this LDS family, but the story is just really beautiful. How this girl is, she becomes ill with this disease, and it's like talks about her experiences. But it's just a really, really, really beautiful show or movie that we watched with the kids the other night. If you have seen Charlie, it's kind of like a Charlie sort of movie. Thank you. Okay. And then the Wrinkle in Time series. Yeah, I read that when I was a kid, like 10. Loved it so much. I think it resonated with me because I could see some elements of the gospel in it. But I didn't really like fully understand at that point. But then I actually read it again with my kids later on, and I was like, there's a lot of really good stuff in this story. And then we watched the movie of that one too, and that was kind of fun to compare. So,
Yeah, I did really like doing that with my children, reading a book and then watching the movie to talk about the differences and even artistic license and things. And my children pretty much have decided the books are just better than the movies in almost every case. Lord of the Rings.
yeah, I love doing
biggest.
that
What?
for the same reason. I'm like, I love doing that for the same reason because I was like, I want them to see and recognize how much different and how much sometimes, a lot of times it's better the book is, but I mean, not always, but for the most part, you can just tell the story so much better in writing.
Yes, right. And then your picture that you have in your head of those characters who you've created with the author, that's another wonderful part of the experience. So I love that too. Okay, then we've added the Amazons and the Swallows. Sorry, I don't know if that's the Amazons and the Swallows as one, Melanie, or if it's two different ones.
It's one movie.
One. Okay, the Amazons and the Swallows. Okay. And that's another one you recommend, yes?
Yeah, so that one is about a family. I don't remember if the dad is fighting in the war or something, but I think the mom seems to be kind of more of a single mom. But she's got 4 kids for the summer where they are staying somewhere by a lake. And it was refreshing to see the amount of trust that she had in her kids. She's not with her kids for most of the movie. But you see the sibling relationships where they're trying to help each other be kind of independent, exploring the area, and the trust that the mom has in them and shows. I don't know. I thought that was refreshing.
Yes, and I love that idea that has been brought up now a couple of times by you moms about the trust or the respect that the parents had for the children. That one's lovely too. The dad was away on a ship. Okay. Yes, and that was something more common too, to have dad gone for long periods of time. And with war, things that we haven't had to experience as much unless you're married to a serviceman. Okay, I'm going to bring this one up again too because I just think it's so sweet. So this one called Mother by Kathleen Norris. Have any of you had a chance to read this since we talked about it? Yes, Ida. You liked it as well?
Yeah, that was just super. It's such a good story. It's a really quick read, but there was like just so many wonderful things, like how the mother was just so sweet, and so like they lived in a humble home, and she sacrificed a lot of her, and it wasn't a sacrifice. Like she loved her children, she loved her family, and so she put her heart and soul into helping them, and And her oldest daughter, I think she was the oldest, she didn't really most of the book really understand that. She was like, oh, mom's so old-fashioned, that's like nobody lives like that anymore. And she was more concerned about, you know, being well-to-do and in these affluent circles of people, and having, you know, having what is it like that you have this pedigree, that you are descendant from these amazing people, and so that makes you just more important or whatever. So then she has this moment in the end where she kind of sees, you know, she's able to see more clearly, really. Like it's like she starts to have eyes to see.
Right.
And it's such a cool thing.
Right. I loved it. It's
I loved
just
it.
beautiful and inspiring. Thank you. Thanks. Then I was going to share with you this quote that I found during the week. I think I mentioned it last time too. And I think Ida read it, but that I just want to go back to that quote that said, true self-care. I know that we're not talking about self-care necessarily, but true self-care is not salt baths and chocolate cake. It's making the choice to build a life you don't need to escape from. And I feel very strongly that moms can choose to see motherhood however they decide to see it. They can choose to see it as a burden and something that is getting in the way of their life, their time, the things that they want to pursue, or they can see it as a great blessing. Granted, it does take a lot of self-mastery, you know, self-control, whatever, to be able to curb some of those negative thoughts that come up. Because it's hard. It's not an easy job. And it is kind of a thankless job on lots of occasions. But if you can learn to find satisfaction and joy in that giving, that special kind of love, it can be the most satisfying thing that you do while you're here on this earth, I believe. So I love that you're finding things that support that, and that you can show those things, share those things with your family. I think that's wonderful. I do want to go back to the comment that Mercedes made and talk about this a little bit before we go. So when I asked about our hearts and how you're, if it's changing how you receive things as you're warming your heart and putting all of these beautiful and good things into your life, her comment was, and Mercedes, I hope you have a moment to come on and share, but she said it's made her so much more sensitive. She said it's a good thing, but also hard because it can make me feel like I'm kind of isolated. And then Cadence, before she had to leave, added, I totally get that, Mercedes. I have felt that way my whole life. So let's talk about that a little bit, Mercedes.
Yeah. I loved what, yes, you're cleaning the sidewalk. I loved what was just said about the mom who at the end of the story had eyes to see. She kind of grew into that, because I feel like that's a really interesting way of putting exactly this part of this conversation, that these things that we do to fill our lives with things that are beautiful and lovely and praiseworthy, that they give us eyes to see. And I was thinking as I'm walking with my family about, you know, Isaiah talking about evil being called good and good being called evil and all these things. I think that this type of development of our own hearts and the warmth and feeling in our homes, what changes there is that we then have eyes to see what is truly good and evil and all of the gray that comes between, you know, those two black and white sort of statements. But it does feel isolating. Okay, I'm going to let my family go a little bit ahead of me because I'm going to back off.
Yeah, no worries.
And they're in a little tunnel and they like to yell. So
of course,
it's an interesting concept, right? Because I'm doing this and it affects my children. But you know, my husband is, you know, not doing all the reading and things like that I'm doing. He's 1000% supportive of all these things that I'm doing. He absolutely wants this for our children. And he appreciates the changes that he's seen in me and our home, but he's also just like not doing it himself, you know? And so he sometimes still wants to watch like a movie or something. And I'm like so much more sensitive, like you said, to like language and to, did you find a big acorn? Oh, it's huge. So much more sensitive to language, to violence, to, you know, all of the things that I am finding dull this new sensitivity that I have. And so the sensitivity is wonderful, but even in my own family, sometimes I can feel isolated because, you know, I have 3 teenage daughters and then I have 2 tiny ones. And the teenagers are at school every day and they are, you know, my eldest is, you know, pulling away from, you know, our family's faith and well, has been for a long time. And so they like, you know, they want to turn on music at home and I'm like, what is this trash? I'm just like, turn it off.
Yeah.
And because it's just different now, like, and things would have rubbed me the wrong way, you know, prior to finding Well-Educated Heart and learning about all these things. But now it's like, I just feel it. And it's almost just like nails on a chalkboard sometimes. And it's kind of funny because if I guess the next step would be to kind of come to the understanding that other people are in a different place than I am, because it makes me feel kind of like irritated and angry. Like, why are you wanting to listen to this garbage? Or why do you want to watch this show that's so like off-putting in terms of being uplifting or lovely? And so the next part is, you know, my heart has changed, but I also need it to be that I'm not getting like angry at people for not being in the same place that I'm in.
Right.
So it's a kind of a complicated sort of thing. And, you know, I have friends in my ward and I have friends, you know, at my church, and I have friends that I have met, you know, in homeschooling groups, and they just aren't necessarily yet interested in some of the same things that I am. And so it does feel really isolating sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And for all those reasons that you outlined. And the hardest is just right there at home, you know, those differences. And how do you continue to have that warm, beautiful heart and not become irritated, because that would kind of defeat the purpose, and be patient with everyone else as they're learning to grow, and then trying to figure out what that balance is in your own home. I know for me it was some of the music that that the kids wanted to listen to, that wasn't bad, but it wasn't lovely. And so I would just say, you know, during certain times of the day, you're welcome to listen to that, but put on headphones or something, because I don't want that to be broadcast to the rest of the home. Especially when there were younger children there, because I was really careful about the kind of music that was in the home for my little ones. So I could put on classical music or inspired music, you know, anything that was positive and good, or even very popular music, but with good lyrics and, you know, all that. But if they wanted to listen to something else, you know, it was this. Or if they wanted to watch a show that was something that the whole family couldn't watch, then it would have to be done in times that others were away or busy or something. Because again, I just didn't want that. Here I've done all this work to create this atmosphere. I'm not going to allow something to come in and push that out. I felt like that was my job, but to do it lovingly and with a lot of patience and understanding, because you also don't want to push a child away in doing that. So that's a hard thing to figure out, that balance. And same thing even with a husband, you know, because they're not doing all that reading the same thing, and they also have to be a different person to go out into the world and do what they do. So yeah, finding out that balance and continuing to be the soft and encouraging and whatever it is that you see yourself as in that role at home as mother. So hard. Also, just to clarify, in this book, it's so lovely because so Mercedes, I highly recommend it. It really is lovely. The mother has this lovely appreciation for who she is, but it's her teenage daughter, her oldest daughter, who changes and gains these eyes to see her mother, and to see that her mother truly is the best person that she knows, and that she wants to become like her mother. And so that's also just, it's such a, I don't know, like a fulfilling book as a mom to have that come around. You have that hope that that's always going to be the end result for your children too, that at some point they'll do what it said in this book, that they'll realize, you know, someday they'll realize who mother was and the blessing she was in their lives, which is not why we do it. We do it for the love of it. And I love that reminder. I just loved it. I hope you did too. But I love this. Again, I'm going back to the mother's heart is the child's schoolroom. And that reminder that mother is an amateur. We're not trained in this. We didn't have schooling to teach us how to be a mother, a homemaker, a teacher of our children at home. But we are amateurs, but that the word amateur is not really the opposite of a professional. The word amateur comes from the Latin word amare, which means to love. A mother, a homemaker, a home teacher does what she does for the love of it. She loves and is loved in return. This is her special service, her blessed vocation, and without this love, the world would suffer. And I know that's what God is bringing us back to, and he's using women to, he's using women to make that change. And Marlene is encouraging women in this work to do just that. For us to soften our hearts, for us to use these resources to change who we are, and then for all that goodness to just bubble over and influence those in our circles of influence. And it happens. I watch it happen. I watch it happen all the time. So find out, in being prayerful, find out what it is that is your work. Your work may all be within the walls of your own home. It might be just there, and that is the best place, I think. And then if you have the time or the energy, the resources, something for that to go out beyond the walls of your home, then wonderful. I love to picture these mothers that we talked about today from those books, or from even the TV shows. These women who were able to portray that kind of love and goodness, and who were able to care about others to where the people around them knew that and felt that. I hope that you're open to the goodness that you share with those around you. Are you going to be perfect at it? Nope, not ever. That's something we're going to always work on, but it's something that we can find encouragement in having each other, knowing that there are other women out there that are trying just like you. And reach out. If you're having a tough time, reach out to one of these ladies here. We've got a group on Facebook that's a Teach Our Own. If you're not part of that and you want to be part of it, do that. We've occasionally back and forth had Marco Polo groups where we've chatted about things that were on our hearts. We can do that. We have the email group that occasionally I'll put something out there that is sharing. Actually, I've got to put a thing out there because I got invited to speak at a homeschool conference that I'm fairly nervous about, but that's coming up. Marlene can't do it, and so she asked if I would do it for her, which is a whole other layer of of nervousness. But it's okay. But a week from Monday, so October the 3rd at 3 p.m. Pacific time is my time. So if you want, it's a free homeschool conference. You just have to go sign up online, and then you can come and be a friendly face in the boxes so that I'm talking to my friends. But anyway, but just remember, I'll share the info. Melanie, thanks. I'll share it in the group. Oh, and Marlene shared it in the Well-Educated Heart group as well. So anyway, thanks for the support. I appreciate it. But look for ways that you can be a light to those around you. And then when you need some light, don't hesitate to reach out and grab it, and know that the best source for that light is received from our Heavenly Father, and He'll give you those things that you need. Anyway, thanks for coming and talking to me about this, the reminder that we as mothers, we do it for the love of it. So this is that Mother Culture by Karen Andreola. And it says for a happy homeschool. It's so packed full of things that have nothing to do with homeschool. It has so much to do with just mother and your role in your home and the influence that you can have on your family. So it's just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So anyway, thank you for talking about that with me today. I've enjoyed it. I hope you have a beautiful weekend and a really good week, and I'll see you next Friday.